Suresh Mahadevan, MD and Head of Equities at UBS, who joins us on the show as well. Suresh, thanks so much for joining in. What's your sense, Suresh, on the markets currently? You liking the mood, and you advise investments into the equity markets at the current juncture on a bottoms-up approach, of course?
Yeah, hi, good morning. No, we are certainly constructive on the market. We believe that, obviously economic growth may be troughing out here. Same holds true for earnings estimates. So definitely, I think, markets could go up from here. I think, the way we think about it, there are three levers to it. The first one, which had already played out, is the coordinated central bank action, which has taken out the tail risks. The second leg is, of course, the Indian government pushing through various reforms, or trying to push through various reforms, showing some positive intent. And the third leg of this will come when the RBI starts easing rates meaningfully. So we still think the third leg is yet to play out. The second leg is still playing out. So we remain constructive on the markets. And as you rightly said, yes, India is a bottom-up market. So there's no point just buying the market, but there are specific stocks within that which would do even better than what the market does.
United Spirits, and after the kind of gains that we've seen in the stock price already, do you think it's time to book profits in the near term, or would you still hold on to United Spirits, considering the dynamics of the company now would completely change with Diageo getting on board?
See, unfortunately, we don't have a published view on this name, but certainly, I think from a big picture, clearly, I think, there is opportunity in India, right? Because we are still economically evolving. So to that extent, obviously, Diageo coming into India could mean better things for this, company. But, unfortunately, as I said, we don't have a published view on this name at this point.
Okay, Suresh, what about a couple of earnings that came out over the last 2-3 days and the reactions thereof? And there has been a big negative reaction on Tata Steel post the numbers. Very disappointing operating performance as well. Slew of downgrades that have come in from your peers too. What's your sense? We are at those 380, 390 levels. Most people bearish on metals as a pocket. What about Tata Steel?
See, I don't have any of the metal stocks. I think the only exception is Hindalco, I think, which I have in the portfolio. And that is fundamentally premised on, with global growth doing what it is, and with China, some of the concerns, it's very difficult for a global commodity to do that well unless, it's really undervalued. So I think, I don't have a strong view either way on this name at this point. But, clearly, I think, that is the overarching thing to look out for, I think, before we jump into some of these, metal names.
Okay, Suresh, on the event on Saturday at the ET Awards, you would have also seen that a lot of focus was given to the telecom space. From, of course, the politicians as well as to the corporate India members present out there. And today, the 2G spectrum sale, 5 bidders in fray, and, a couple of listed entities out there too. Now, there has been a lot of news flow surrounding this pack. A couple of stocks that really we can talk on. What's your view? They are not trading at highs, at least Bharti Airtel isn't, maybe Idea is. What do you do with this pocket?
See, I am very bullish on this space for the simple reason I think there are 3 inflection points that are happening in the sector. The first one is, of course, related to regulation, all this uncertainty. Obviously, if you look at the earnest money deposit that has been received, it's pretty clear that the demand does not exceed supply in a vast majority of the circles. So clearly the auction is going to be a very low-key event. It might get over in the next few days. By end of this week, it should be over for all practical purposes. So I think that is number one, which is very positive for the players who are still left, I think. The second inflection point is with respect to data. If you see the numbers of Idea and Bharti, the data revenues as a percentage of revenues is picking up. And I think it has only one way to go, which is up. And data is a higher margin business because you don't pay interconnect. It's used at non-peak hours, etc. Now, the third and the most important inflection point, it's just my sense, having followed this sector for 10 years, is that prices are going to move up significantly post the auctions. And I don't think anybody is expecting this. I think none of the analysts, none of the investment managers. I think the moment this event happens, these stocks will all be up. And as you rightly said, yes, Idea seems to have done better from a stock price perspective. And I definitely think Bharti would do quite well as well. So Bharti would be my top pick at this point. I think it's certainly a stock worth taking a good investment view on at this point.
Suresh, but the bigger question is, I mean, does regulatory overhang lift post the auction process, or do you think this is still going to be, a slew of legal cases which are going to go on forever?
No, it's quite possible, depending on what the government does, I think, around reforming, etc. But I think the reality of this business is there are potentially only 3 economically viable businesses, mobile businesses in India, which is Bharti, Vodafone, Idea. And of course, there is RCom, which is also, from an accounting perspective, profitable, but I think it has some negative momentum. But, we'll have to see. So this market can maybe support 5 to 6 players. So when we go from 12 to maybe 6 players, there are, positive changes at the margin for the return profile and for stocks. So, look, as a sector, regulation and competition are part and parcel of every sector, just that telecom, I think we've had an overdose of that, and maybe some mean reversion here is called for.
But Suresh, what kind of response are you expecting from the 2G auctions? Because most experts on the street do believe that it's going to be rather tepid, with just 2 circles like West Bengal and Bihar likely to see over demand.
Yeah, it's very clear, I think, Aisha. I think if you look at the earnest money deposits that are received, obviously it doesn't tell you which circles, but you can reverse calculate that. I think it's pretty obvious that most of the metros, A circles, and to a certain extent B circles, there's, not a lot of interest. You are right. I think West Bengal, maybe Calcutta, maybe Bihar. I think 3 or 4 circles had like demand exceeding supply. And again, after paying earnest money deposit, the operators can still change their mind. It basically tells you that, the government is asking for an unrealistic price for the spectrum. And I think that is so true, because, the later you enter the market, this value of spectrum should go down for the new entrants, which is what this is showing you.
You spoke about mean reversion, and my question stems from the fact that while it's been talked about for ages that reforms will come for the infrastructure sector, almost everybody is negative. Everybody's saying it will be a long haul, there will be a long time before these stocks return to any kind of a favor. There was talk from the PM himself on Saturday that something very soon will be done to pass some key measures, and some key projects would be cleared as well, and the much needed funds will be made available to these companies. Is it time for mean reversion in infrastructure?
Yeah, we certainly are positive on the large cap infra names, whether it is L&T, BHEL. I think it's going to be a combination of 2-3 things, right? One, I think, is obviously certain measures from the government, whether it is NIB, whether it is, some other way to clear these projects. Second thing, of course, is related to interest rates. I think if interest rates come down meaningfully, potentially that is better for these companies, because these company stocks finally move on order flows, which is related to the investment cycle. And I think that is the most important thing. I think if Indian corporates start investing, I think we also heard from some other people in your awards that hardly any bank is receiving any new proposal on infrastructure for the last 12 months or 18 months. So I think that will change. I think certainly there is a mean reversion that is possible. And if the government is able to push through some of this in this limited window before Feb 2013, I think it could meaningfully, meaningfully make a difference to some of these infrastructure names.
Okay, Suresh, what about cement? And the reason I'm asking you this question is not to figure out a view on what to do with some of the large caps. Of course, that is welcome as well. But a theme that a few people have been speaking about of the last month and a half, that the mid-cap cement stocks will eventually have to play catch-up. My question is it that large caps like Ultratech, which are trading at over $200 EV per ton, come down to 150, which would be mean reversion of sorts? Or is it that the mid-caps would play catch-up, sub $100, $110, which they are trading at right now, all the way to 150? What is it the more likely scenario?
See, I think cement, most people have kind of, whoever has got it wrong on 2 things. I think one is they have underestimated, obviously, the pricing power in the sector. Clearly, I think, that is in hindsight, that is clearly visible. The second thing is even the growth levels, I think, people talk about EV per ton, etc., but I'm not sure how relevant that is, simply because I think it takes 5 years to put up a greenfield cement plant, right, today. And if, some of the reasons we talked about for the revival of infrastructure sector were to be true, then there is no need to be negative on these names, right, from a simple, because at the end of the day, stocks move when EPS upgrades are there and vice versa, right. So my sense is there is no need to be overly negative on these names. I mean, we are positive on Grasim, I think, from our side. But, it's a sector which is undergoing some transition within our coverage. So, I'll have a more informed view later. But I think, mid-caps, I don't really have a view, because my sense is, if the industry were to consolidate and some of these get taken out, some of the promoters start, I think, selling, then there could be some trigger to, value getting crystallized. But other than that, I think, clearly the market favors the large cap names, as clearly seen in the valuation differential.
Suresh, before we let you go, one Diwali dhamaka pick for our viewers, and preferably not a nifty name. Okay, that's going to be a little tough. So I think out of our top picks, maybe something like Sun TV, we really like. I don't know. I don't think it's there in the Nifty. Because, we think this company has been a little misunderstood in terms of its earnings power. And clearly, I think, the RSU deal obviously clearly shows that things are fine between the company and the Tamil Nadu government. And clearly, I think the stock saw some weakness on the buying of the Hyderabad IPL franchise, which we think is actually not very relevant in the analysis of the name. So we like this name quite a bit because it will benefit from digitization. And I think, if you look at its history, I think the company has been extremely profitable, very dominant player in the south. And we quite like this name at the current level. Over the next 12 months, it could give a lot of alpha. So Sun TV would be my topic.